Gemini, 3 warning signs you cannot ignore in August. There's a quiet stirring in the air, Gemini, like wind whispering through the leaves just before a storm. You may not yet see what's coming, but you've already begun to feel in your chest, in your sleep, in the flickering thoughts that keep returning like unfinished sentences. This isn't just another chapter in your story. August holds a mirror up to you, and it doesn't blink. You, Gemini, are the zodiac's messenger, always observing, always moving, always balancing 1,000 realities at once. But this month, the universe wants to speak directly to you, not through metaphors or riddles, but through clear signs delivered with a precision only fate can offer. 3 warning signals, each one a turning point, each one an invitation to step out of indecision and into conscious transformation. And if you're truly listening, someone within you already knows. August is a month when silence won't protect you, when postponing a truth will cost you more than facing it. This message has found you now because your soul is ready to choose clarity over confusion, movement over paralysis, truth over comfort. If this resonates with you already, take a deep breath, let it settle, and as we begin, remember to like this message, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the Esoteric Wisdom channel, because this is not the end of a forecast. It's the beginning of a spiritual intervention. Let's walk through it together, one gate at a time. Gate 1, the sign of delayed decision and the cost of waiting. There comes a moment, Gemini, when the dance between 2 options no longer feels like freedom. It feels like a trap. In August, the universe is gently but firmly closing on a particular area of your life where you've been trying to hover in midair, suspended between yes and no, forward and backward, truth and avoidance. You know exactly what this is about. The situation isn't vague. It's the one you revisit in your mind late at night. The one you keep explaining to yourself with new justifications. The one that drains you because you keep delaying a decision that your intuition already made long ago. For you, Gemini, indecision doesn't always come from confusion. Often, it comes from your ability to see too much. You see all the angles, all the consequences, all the people who might be affected, and that makes you hesitate. You want the elegant solution, the one where no one gets hurt, where every variable lines up and no bridges are burned. But in August, the universe is no longer interested in elegance. It's interested in truth. And the truth, dear Gemini, is that by delaying this decision, you've already been hurting yourself. Let's be clear, this warning is not about some future catastrophe. It's about something already happening. The emotional cost is rising. The energy you're spending in limbo is starting to affect your sleep, your focus, and your ability to feel joy in the present moment. You may notice that conversations around you are becoming more tense, or that people who were once passive are now pressing you for answers. You may feel an inner agitation, like something inside you is knocking louder and louder, demanding to be heard. This is the first sign of August, and it is showing up because time is no longer neutral. Let me share the story of Lena, a Gemini client I worked with last year. She had been in a long-term creative collaboration with someone she deeply respected, but over time, it became clear that they had grown apart. Their visions diverged, and the partnership became more draining than inspiring. Still, Lena didn't leave. Why? Because she feared that ending the partnership would hurt the other person and disappoint those around them. She kept thinking, maybe we just need another project to reconnect. But deep down, Lena had already made the decision. She was simply waiting for the right moment. That moment never came. Instead, the friction increased. Their communication grew strained, and what could have been a graceful closure turned into a painful rupture, because life had to make a decision for her. In August, the cosmos does not want that for you, Gemini. That's why this sign is arriving now, so you can act before circumstances force your hand. Depending on when you were born, the nature of this delayed decision may differ. If you're a Gemini born between May 21st and May 30th, this energy will likely manifest in a relationship dynamic. You've been holding back your truth in the hopes that clarity will arrive from the other person. But clarity won't come from them. It will come from you deciding what your boundaries are. If you're born between May 31st and June 10th, this will likely appear in a career or professional scenario. Perhaps a role or commitment that once excited you now feels stale or misaligned, but you're staying out of loyalty or fear of disappointing others. You keep postponing the real conversation, but August will push it into the light. If you're born between June 11th and June 20th, this delayed decision is likely tied to a personal responsibility or family role you've been silently carrying, a role that may no longer match your truth. And yet you've been afraid to step back, fearing it will unravel a delicate balance. But here's the truth across all timelines. There will be no more room for procrastination. The indecision that once protected you now risks poisoning you. You may feel tempted to stall a little longer, ask for more time, gather more opinions, wait for a better moment. But in August, the waiting itself is the wound, and this wound will fester if you don't act. The lesson here is radical but necessary. Even imperfect decisions are better than no decision at all. You will be presented with two clear options. Not 10, not 5, 2. And your choice, Gemini, will set the tone for the rest of the month. It will either free up your energy, allowing you to realign with your truth, or will trap you deeper in a cycle of emotional depletion. So how do you choose? Not with your mind alone, but with your body. Pay attention to the physical cues. When you imagine choosing option A, how does your breath respond? When you picture option B, what happens in your chest, your gut, your shoulders? Your body has no filter. It will tell you what is aligned long before your logic can explain it. This is not about recklessness. It's about courage. The courage to disrupt the comfort zone that is no longer comforting. The courage to step forward. Even if your voice trembles. Even if someone else is upset. Even if the bridge burns. And here's the sacred secret. Those who truly love you will not be destroyed by your truth. They may be shocked. They may need time. But they will respect you more when you stop hiding behind neutrality and speak from a heart. August's first sign is not a punishment. It's an invitation to stop circling and start landing. Because the truth is this, the version of you that has been avoiding this choice is not the one you came here to be. You came here to evolve. You came here to trust your truth enough to live it out loud. You came here to decide. And once you do, Gemini, the relief will be profound. The air will clear. The energy you've been leaking into worry and delay will return to you. Your creativity will reignite. Your joy will find you again. Are you ready to choose? Because the clock is no longer ticking in the background. In August, it's ringing directly in your ears. Gate 2, the sign of false balance, when peace becomes a prison. Gemini, your gift is duality. You carry within you the wisdom of both light and shadow, joy and sorrow, movement and stillness. You can hold opposing truths in the same breath. And that is a power few truly understand. But there's a hidden cost of this gift, and in August, it begins to show. The second warning sign won't arrive like a thunderclap. It will seep in quietly, like a weight behind your eyes, a silence that feels too heavy, a smile that requires too much effort to maintain. You may still be going through the motions, smiling in conversations, nodding politely, agreeing to things that don't quite sit right with you. But inside, something is beginning to rebel. This is a sign of false balance. And for a Gemini, it is perhaps the most painful to acknowledge, because you, more than most, value harmony. You spent much of your life learning how to adapt, how to shift gears in conversations, how to read the room and say just enough to keep things smooth. And somewhere along the way, you began to confuse harmony with hiding. In August, that illusion breaks. You may begin to feel an exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure, a quiet rage that flares up in the smallest interactions, a sense of restlessness in spaces where you used to feel calm. These are not random emotions. They are the symptoms of spiritual suffocation. You've created balance, but it's a performance, not a truth. And your soul can no longer sustain it. Let's pause here. I want to share the story of Jonah, a Gemini who came to me at the beginning of his Saturn return. On the surface, he had it all: a successful design career, a wide circle of friends, a reputation for being easygoing and agreeable. But behind that image, Jonah was exhausted, not because of the work, but because of the constant self-editing. He told me, "I agree with things I don't believe in just to avoid confrontation." I laugh at jokes that don't land. I go to dinners I don't want to attend, and I never say what I really feel. I'm so used to being pleasant, I don't even know what my real opinion is anymore. That confession cracked something open, and over the next few months, Jonah began the slow, awkward, liberating journey of reclaiming authentic balance, the kind that doesn't cost your identity. Gemini, in August, you're being asked to do the same. This month, you will be confronted with situations that highlight the cost of your adaptations. Conversations where you used to nod will suddenly make you feel nauseous. Invitations you once accepted out of obligation will feel suffocating. People who once found comfort in your neutrality will now accuse you of being distant or difficult. But don't be alarmed. These tensions aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They are signs that you're finally telling the truth. Because peace that requires your silence isn't peace. It's emotional exile. And in August, your soul is walking back home. You will feel compelled to say things that you kept inside for far too long. You may shock others by setting a boundary, by saying no, by declining to explain your every move. And yes, some people will resist this shift, especially those who have benefited from your adaptability. But here's the miracle. Your discomfort is the beginning of your real alignment. You were never meant to be everyone's emotional regulator. You were meant to be a voice, a bridge between truths, yes, but also a flame that lights the way toward clarity. So what does this false balance look like in daily life? It looks like staying in a friendship where you feel drained, but afraid to pull back. It looks like agreeing to a role at work that no longer aligns, but saying yes because you're so good at it. It looks like being a supportive sibling, partner, or child, while quietly losing your own sense of being. In August, these roles begin to feel unbearably tight. And that's not failure. That's your soul reclaiming its shape. You may cry unexpectedly. You may find yourself angry without knowing why. You may feel lonelier even while surrounded by people. These are signs that your old self, your overly accommodating, overly edited self, is dissolving. And what rises in its place? Clarity, power, truth, joy, real peace. Because when you stop filtering your essence to make others comfortable, something wild and holy happens. The right people begin to hear you. The right opportunities begin to find you. And the spaces where you once felt invisible become the stages for your voice. There's a moment I always return to when speaking to Gemini clients in this phase. It's a quote from the poet David White. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Gemini, how much of your life has been too small for your truth? In August, you don't need to burn it all down. You simply need to stop pretending. Begin by noticing. Track the moments when your body tightens, when your throat closes, when your smile feels forced. These are clues. Your intuition is showing you where false peace has been draining your light. And when the moment comes, when someone asks how you feel, what you want, what's next, answer honestly, even if your voice trembles, even if you're not sure how it will land. Because authenticity is not about being perfect. It's about being real. And that kind of realness, that kind of luminous, untamed Gemini expression is what you were born for. This month, you will begin to see which connections are built on true resonance and which were simply built on your silence. Some people will fall away. Some will be surprised. But the ones who remain, the ones who say, you seem lighter, or you feel more like you, those are your tribe. Keep them close. Let August be the month where you stop dimming your voice in the name of harmony. Let it be the month you understand this. The most powerful peace is the one that starts with truth. And if that truth shakes things up, so be it. The storm clears the air. And you, Gemini, were never meant to stay quiet in exchange for false stillness. You were born to move, to awaken, to speak. Let the healing begin with your honesty. Gate 3. The sign of opportunity in disguise, when the disruption is a doorway. Gemini, the universe speaks to you in movement, in change, in shifting winds. And yet, not all change feels like liberation, especially at first. Some arrive dressed as setbacks. Some knock down your door without warning. Others come wrapped in discomfort, cloaked in conflict, or laced with uncertainty. But make no mistake, in August, what appears to be a disruption is, in truth, a divine intervention. This third sign, the sign of opportunity in disguise, is the most difficult to recognize because it doesn't arrive with clarity. It often feels like a loss, a mistake, a mess. But if you pause, breathe, and lean in, you'll realize that the chaos is rearranging your life not to break you, but to free you. For Gemini, who thrives on ideas, choices, and the power of the mind, this can feel like betrayal. You think, I didn't plan for this. I didn't expect this change. But that's precisely the point. Your soul is calling you to expand beyond what the mind can control. Let me tell you about Arya, a Gemini artist who came to me a year ago. She was preparing for her biggest exhibit yet. Months of work, planning, and emotion poured into every piece. Just 2 weeks before the opening, the gallery canceled the event without explanation. She was devastated, angry, embarrassed. She called me in tears, saying, I don't know why this is happening. I did everything right. But I asked her to sit with the deeper questions. What if this isn't a punishment? What if it's a pivot? What if something better is being aligned behind the scenes? 2 weeks later, another gallery owner saw her work online and offered not just a solo exhibit, but a long-term partnership and international visibility. The original loss was not a rejection, it was a redirection. Gemini, August will bring you moments like this. You may lose something or someone you thought you needed. A door may close unexpectedly. A plan you were emotionally invested in might unravel. And in those moments, the ego will panic, but the soul will breathe deeper. Because the truth is, some things must leave your life to make room for what's meant for you. This sign may show up in several forms. A sudden argument that reveals a hidden truth you needed to see. A canceled project that makes space for something more aligned. A person entering your life who says one sentence that changes everything. A job opportunity or move that seems risky, but feels right on a soul level. Whatever it is, the key to decoding this sign is your emotional response. Not the fear, not the anxiety, but the strange sense of relief buried underneath. That moment when your logical mind says, this shouldn't be happening. But your inner knowing whispers, but something about this feels right. Pay attention to that whisper. It's your intuition clearing a path through the fog. In August, your task is to trust the process, especially when it doesn't make sense. To lean into the discomfort long enough to see the doorway it hides. This isn't blind faith. It's embodied awareness. It's learning to recognize that just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, some of the most aligned paths in your life will begin with discomfort. Think of the butterfly. The cocoon isn't cozy. The moment of emergence isn't graceful. It's messy, it's tense. It looks like collapse. But it's not. It's transformation. Gemini, you are in such a moment. And what makes this opportunity unique is that it will ask you to choose between two kinds of life. The safe life, the one others expect from you, predictable, controlled, familiar, or the true life, the one your soul has been whispering about, exciting, uncertain, alive. In August, the universe will present this choice not in theory, but in reality. A moment will come when you can no longer straddle the middle. You'll feel an internal split. One path will feel like old clothes, comfortable but restrictive. The other will feel wild and unfamiliar, but freeing. And here's where the courage comes in. Gemini, you are the sign of air, light, flexible, intuitive. But this month, the winds don't just carry you. They ask you to fly on purpose. They ask you to leap, not because you know what will happen next, but because you trust the sky will catch you. That moment, that leap, is the hidden opportunity. It will not be labeled clearly. It will not feel safe, but it will stir something in you that's been dormant for years. A hunger, a dream, a calling. And you may ask, how do I know if it's real? You'll know, because even though your mind trembles, your soul will exhale. Even though you're nervous, you'll feel more alive than you've felt in months. Even though others may question your choice, you will feel a deep inner peace. That's your signal. That's the disguised gift. Now, let's bring this back to you. What has recently fallen apart in your life? What unexpected change has disrupted your plans? Where have you felt both fear and excitement at the same time? Write it down. Sit with it. Because hidden in that experience is a choice, a door, a moment that, if embraced, will alter the course of your life. And when you walk through it, not with certainty, but with courage, you'll realize the truth. The storm didn't come to break you. It came to reveal the sky. Gate 4, the courage to let go, and the identity you're meant to become. Gemini, you are standing at the edge of something immense. By now, August has likely begun to reveal its purpose. Not through grand revelations, but through subtle shifts in your internal landscape. Your body feels different. Your mind is more alert, less interested in distractions. Your heart aches not from loss, but from longing for something more real, more honest, more you. And this is where we arrive at the next gate, the one that requires not clarity, not answers, but release. Letting go is not natural for you, not because you're weak, but because you're deeply mentally invested in what you build. You pour yourself into your projects, your relationships, your dreams. You analyze, adapt, give second chances. You see the potential, and you hold on, not out of naivety, but out of hope. But hope can become a chain when it keeps you tied to something that's already ended. And August is asking you to be brave enough to admit that something, or someone you've held on to, is no longer aligned with who you're becoming. You may already feel the signs. A friendship that once energized you now leaves you anxious. A role you played proudly is starting to feel like a costume. A plan you clung to now feels strangely irrelevant. It's not that these things were wrong. It's that they've served their purpose. And now, you must ask, am I willing to release what I've outgrown, even if it still looks good on the outside? Let me tell you about Nico, a Gemini client of mine who was fiercely loyal to the life he'd built. He had a career that paid well, a partner everyone adored, a lifestyle that looked ideal on paper. But inside, he felt increasingly numb, like he was watching his life from the outside in. When we spoke, I asked him a simple question. What would you do if you weren't afraid of disappointing anyone? He went silent. Tears welled in his eyes. I'd leave, he whispered. Not because I'm ungrateful, but because this isn't me anymore. It took him another 6 months to follow through. But when he did, his entire being changed. His face softened. His energy brightened. He told me, it felt like I came back into my body after years of being on autopilot. That's the kind of shift August is offering you, Gemini. Not a dramatic escape, not a chaotic collapse, but a return, a quiet but powerful reclamation of your truth. But here's the catch. It will feel terrifying. Letting go always does. There will be moments where your mind screams, but what if I regret this? Or what if I never find something better? That's your fear talking. And fear is loudest just before the leap. But beneath that fear is something much older, much wiser, your inner compass. And if you listen closely, it's not afraid. It's ready. Letting go doesn't always mean burning bridges. Sometimes it means redefining the relationship. Sometimes it means leaving with grace. Sometimes it simply means no longer betraying yourself to keep something intact. This August, ask yourself, were you still holding onto out of guilt? Where are you staying just to avoid the discomfort of change? What dream or identity have you outgrown, even if it wants to find you? And most importantly, what part of you is waiting to be born on the other side of this release? Because that's what this gate is truly about. Not just letting go, but making space. Space for the new version of you that's trying to emerge. The version that doesn't apologize for their truth. The version that doesn't second-guess every feeling. The version that lives, speaks, and chooses from alignment, not approval. Gemini, this month isn't just about external change. It's about identity death and soul rebirth. You're shedding layers of obligation, performance, adaptation. You're no longer satisfied being understood only halfway. You're ready for something deeper, something more. But before that can arrive, you must release the old. And here's the miracle. When you let go of what no longer fits, you don't lose yourself. You meet yourself, perhaps for the first time in years. You meet the Gemini who isn't confused, but complex, not scattered, but multidimensional, not two-faced, but deeply tuned to life's many faces, and unafraid to wear only the ones that reflect your truth. August will bring moments that feel like goodbyes, but they are also beginnings. Honor them. Bless what's ending. Mourn it if you must, but do not chase it. What's gone is not your anchor anymore. And if you're brave enough to open your hands, you'll discover something extraordinary. The universe is already placing something new in your palm. Trust the space. Trust the silence that comes after goodbye, because that silence is sacred. And within it, your future is whispering your name. Gate 5. The power of aligned action. Living the truth you've claimed. Gemini, by the time you arrive at this 5th and final gate, you're no longer the same person who began this journey. You've faced the pressure of a decision too long avoided. You've uncovered the exhaustion of a false peace and dared to name it. You recognize that the disruption in your life may, in fact, be a disguised doorway, and you've begun the quiet courage of letting go, not because it was easy, but because it was true. Now, August asks one final thing. Live it. Lie what you know. Let your actions match your truth. Let your movements mirror your soul's voice. Let the way you walk through the world be the clearest expression of everything you've remembered about yourself. Because knowledge without embodiment is just another form of delay. And delay, Gemini, is a pattern you're being called to break, once and for all. In this phase, the universe doesn't need you to be perfect. It doesn't even need you to be fearless. It needs you to be willing, to act even with trembling hands, to speak even when your voice shakes, to move even when the path is not fully lit. This is where courage becomes your companion. Not as a feeling, but as a decision you make again and again. Let me tell you about Alina, a Gemini writer I worked with recently. After months of inner transformation, realizations, endings, truth-telling, she came to me frustrated. I know what I need to do, she said, but I can't seem to actually do it. I asked her, what are you waiting for? She paused. I don't know. Maybe for the fear to go away. And there it was. That old belief that we must feel confident before we move, that we must feel 100% ready before we leap. But the truth is, most life-altering choices are made before we feel ready. The confidence comes after the action, not before. Alina finally submitted the manuscript she had been hiding for years. It was messy, imperfect, vulnerable. But within 3 weeks, a publisher contacted her. Within 3 months, her story was on its way into the world, not because she waited for clarity, but because she moved anyway. Gemini, in August, your challenge is not to think more. It's to act from the clarity you've already earned. What does that look like? Say what you need to say to the person you've been avoiding, walking away from a job, connection, or commitment that no longer resonates, pitching the idea that terrifies you, sending the email, making the call, signing the lease, ending the chapter, creating the project, art, or plan you've dreamt of but told yourself not yet. And here's the thing, aligned action will often feel weirdly quiet. You may expect trumpets or applause, but instead, what comes is often stillness, relief, peace, not because life gets easier, but because you stop resisting what was always meant to be. In fact, here is one of the great spiritual paradoxes. When you begin acting in alignment, you'll be met with both resistance and flow. Resistance from the old world you're leaving behind, and flow from a new one welcoming you in. Don't mistake the resistance as a sign to stop. Let it be confirmation that you're disrupting a pattern, and therefore, something powerful is unfolding. Gemini, one of your gifts is reinvention. You know how to pivot. You know how to adapt. But August calls it to take that gift deeper. Not just outer change, but internal integrity. Reinvention not as a mask, but as a mirror. From this moment on, let every action you take be filtered through a new question. Is this aligned with who I am becoming, or who I'm afraid to leave behind? If it belongs to the old, thank it, then release it. If it belongs to the new, even if it scares you, say yes. And if you don't know, don't freeze. Instead, take the smallest step forward in the direction of your soul's relief. Because August is not asking you to leap over mountains. It's asking you to stop walking in circles. To stop betraying yourself one polite decision at a time. To stop waiting for someone else's permission to be real. This is your time, Gemini. This is your initiation into conscious living. This is the month when your yes begins to mean something again, because it's no longer wrapped in obligation. This is the month your no becomes sacred, because it no longer requires guilt. This is the month your presence returns to you, because you finally stop leaving parts of yourself behind, keep others comfortable. Let August be remembered as the month you stopped thinking about change and became it. Conclusion: the real you was never gone. You were just waiting to return. Gemini, take a breath. Let it settle in your chest. Not the breath of performance or habit or anticipation, but a breath of arrival, because this month you have arrived somewhere real. You've crossed invisible thresholds. You've answered inner callings you could no longer silence. You've turned toward truths that once scared you and allowed them to become your compass. And perhaps most importantly, you remember that your freedom was never about external permission. It was always about one question: will I honor my truth, even if it costs me to comfort the old world? August has not come to break you. It has come to bring you back. Back to the Gemini who no longer splits in two to please both sides. Back to the Gemini who no longer wears neutrality like a survival suit. Back to the Gemini who speaks, not to fill silence, but to awaken it. This is not just a transformation. It's a homecoming. And home isn't a place. It's a self you stop abandoning. So if you felt the pressure, the shift, the storm inside, know this: it's not just you. It's a collective awakening of souls who are done living on autopilot. And you, Gemini, are leading the way through your words, through your choices, through your example. There will be those who don't understand, who will say, "You've changed." And you'll smile not with defense, but with relief, because you have changed, and you're not going back. So now I invite you to anchor this shift in something tangible. Leave a comment below. Tell us, what have you released this August? What truth did you finally speak? What decision did you finally make? Your words may be the exact mirror someone else needs to see themselves clearly for the first time. And if this journey has resonated, like it, share it, subscribe to the sacred space we're building together here on Esoteric Wisdom, because this isn't the end. This is the beginning of a new rhythm, a new breath, a new season of living from your center. And the Gemini who walks forward from here, they don't need approval. They carry permission within their own pulse.